Hello and welcome to this edition of Let's Talk About It, where my guest today is none other than Donna. We're going by the first name only because of the sensitivity of the subject. Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Today's topic is actually a very sensitive subject. It's human trafficking, which is really happening all over the U.S. and particularly a very high rate in the city of Houston, where we all live. Donna is actually an advocate for human trafficking. Now, Donna, first of all, I want to ask you, how did you actually get involved in human trafficking?
Well, it was something that I think I was just called to do, and it took a very, very long time for me to what I call being obedient to something that I felt like God really put into my heart. And so once I said yes, eventually, it took about 4 good years, then things just started coming to me. The doors just started flying open, information and different organizations and people that had the same heart and the same idea all came together, and that's how it really started. It started in my bedroom crying, going, I cannot believe this is happening. You know,
is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was it something that just God just put into your spirit to do, and you just basically hesitated for a minute?
For 4 years.
For 4 years?
Yeah.
And then you took the bull by the horns and got started?
Exactly. No,
wow.
That's exactly what happened.
Now, you know, a lot of people, they hear the term human trafficking, but they don't exactly know what it means. Can you define exactly what human trafficking means?
Well, human trafficking is any time that you are actually buying or selling a human for trade or for goods or services. We do have 2 different types of trafficking. Human trafficking can also be associated with labor, you know, where people are bringing people in from different parts of the world to work for a very, very low wage or actually work for nothing. Okay. And sometimes if you go to those shops where you may see a lot of women from like different parts of the world braiding hair and all those situations, they may not be getting paid for it but being forced to do it. Then you have human sex trafficking, which is actually the commercial sex trade.
Got you. Now, and speaking of that, that's particularly what you're involved in. It's
yes,
that side of it.
It's the human sex trafficking.
The human sex trafficking. And there's a difference between trafficking and human sex trafficking.
Exactly.
Got you. Now, in our earlier meeting that we had prior to the show, there were some things that had taken place that really shocked me as it related to human sex trafficking and the way that it's hidden right under our noses. Right. And some of those places that we pass by every day. We see every day, but because we don't know, we don't know. What are some of the signs, Donna, that we can look for?
Well, I mean, let's talk about this also because Houston is the hub of trafficking, you know, for sexual activity. And it's only because we have such a huge city. And we have the Intercontinental Airport, we have the railroads, we have the port, we have
I-10.
I-10 is just, you can go anywhere from I-10. So this makes it very, very easy for us to transport young girls. And it also happens a lot of times on the railroad tracks, you know, on the actual cars. And believe it or not, sometimes what will happen is you have cars that are coming from so many different parts of the world. They could be stacked with commodities, but behind those commodities are beds that are layered, and that's where these girls are stored until they get to the city.
Wow. Now tell me this, the average age of a young girl that's involved in trafficking is what?
In the United States, it's 12 years old. It's 12 years old, but now we are starting to see signs of girls that are now 8 because girls that are 12 and 13, 14, 15 are becoming a little bit more smart and savvy. Okay. So for a trafficker or a pimp is what we would call them also, they're looking for more naive girls, and sometimes those are girls of 8 years old.
Of 8 years old?
8 years old.
So that, of course, that's baffling for me to hear that. How does an 8-year-old get out of a household and into this type of life? Where are the parents? I mean, help me to understand how this happens.
I think that's everyone's question, honestly, but you have to think about the men that are, and the women that are out there scouting and looking for these girls or looking for kids that don't have a home. that don't have a father figure, or a father may be, incarcerated, the mother may be incarcerated. You have parents that may be addicted to drugs, and so you have a child that's really out there just kind of taking care of themselves. You have a lot of runaways, and you have children that are 8 years old that are running away because it could be run away from a situation at their own home, and that will be probably the prime picking for a pimp.
Is that right?
And
But-
we're looking at children also involved in foster care. So those are all the children that are starving for affection and love, and that is the biggest angle that they use, is because they want to show this child that I love you, I'm your father. And that's why sometimes you hear this quite often, pimps referred to as daddy,
Yes.
because they have now taken on this father role, this father figure for a child, and they call them daddy.
Wow. That is, that really blows my mind, first of all, that an 8-year-old can actually be lured into this type of lifestyle.
Sure.
And it's like, who would, I just don't get it, mentally, how an adult person can take an innocent child at the age of 8 and create a monster, really, that'll go out into society. I want to ask you this question, Donna. When you see a situation where there's an 8-year-old child that's put in these types of situations, and we're talking about sex situations, right?
Exactly, yes.
And people are actually buying these children, these kids?
Yeah, oh yeah. The younger you are, honestly, you make more money. The younger a child is, they're gonna make more money. This is a $32 billion industry. So a child can be sold over and over and over again. Think about drugs. And think about someone that's caught up in selling drugs.
Okay.
They can sell crack, they can sell cocaine, they can sell heroin 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, just individual packs of it. You can sell a child over and over and over. So a lot of times what we're seeing is these kids are being sold 10 times a day. 10 times a day.
Okay, now, I'm just trying to understand you.
Sure.
When you say the child can be sold over and over and over again, is that where a pimp basically houses that child and basically sells them to a customer for a sexual activity, then they come back to that hub? Or are they sold to totally different people over and over again where they leave their hub that they were at?
They're selling to Johns over
Okay.
and over again.
Okay.
Of
Okay.
course this does happen where there is so much movement of the girls from city to city that they are also selling them to maybe other buyers even, So this happens every day, and that's why it's called trafficking, because you're moving a person from city to city.
Wow.
And if you think about it, when you're looking at a lot of children that have come up missing and you cannot find them, a lot of these girls and these boys are also, they've been caught up in sex trafficking, and you'll probably never find them.
Wow. And to think that that's happening right here in the city of Houston.
Yes.
Houston is one of the 4th largest cities, but it's one of the biggest ones for this particular activity. And I've also, in my research, discovered that the FM 1960 area itself is one of the hugest streets, actually, for human sex trafficking. And I'm thinking, wow, this is right under our noses. We're right here on 1960. And the fact that this stuff is happening right under our noses is just
it is.
baffling to me.
And I don't think that people realize that when you see this building with just open, spa open, that's not one of our favorite massage locations. I almost gave a name. But these are places where girls are housed to provide sexual activities. So, you see these, you drive up and down 1960. Southwest Houston is also very, very
Huge
prominent.
for that,
it is,
yes.
and so is Southeast Houston. But what we're seeing, when you go to Southwest Houston, you'll see a lot of spas that contain Asian women. So that is actually the population, or that we see a lot of Asian prostitution there. When we go to Southeast Houston, we see Cantinas. And cantinas also are used to house girls. Those are brothels as well. And then we have the 1960 area that you'll probably see more, girls that are maybe African American and also Caucasian.
Is that right? You know what? I want to talk a little bit more about that, about the other nationalities that are involved in this, because I had a one-sided view for a long time. All right, we're going to be back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It. You guys want to stick around.
I made $393 a month, and you could buy a girl for $10 a night. I went to bed with over 500 girls in 2 years, and because they were there.
You ask if you the favorite type, what you like, if you want dark or brown. You ask it, and the girl come to you. It's like you order a pizza, something like that. You can compare it.
All right, welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It. Today's topic is human sex trafficking. My guest today is Donna. Donna, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Ferrell. Thank you.
Yes. Now, when we left off, we were talking about the different areas of Houston where all this stuff is happening. You mentioned Southeast Houston, and you mentioned Cantinas. For those that don't know what a cantina is, what is a cantina? When I heard that, I'm like, what is that?
A cantina,
Yeah.
it's a bar. It's frankly a bar.
Oh, a
where
bar.
It's a bar where guys can go in and, and get a beer and sit down, and at a table they have a jukebox, so it's really a bar. But the thing about a cantina is that some of them are housing these girls for sexual activity. So there is also a menu that you can order from, and let's just say, for instance, you can buy a beer for $7 and then spend $3 more to have a girl come in, sit at a table and talk to you. Then you can spend $7 more to take her in the back. So I've actually been in a cantina that was closed down, and we got a chance to walk this area that we are finding these girls in, and it was a bar, but
Wow.
behind this bar was rows of houses. It was 84 rooms, and when this cantina was raided, they were able to save close to 100 girls, and half of those were minors.
You have got to be kidding me.
No, not at all.
This is in Houston?
Yes, sir. It's in Southeast Houston, very desolate part of the city, but it was very
Wow.
close to a railroad track. And the thing that was so astonishing to me is that on the cars, they were writing, "We will deliver." So it was very blatant, very blatant. And on a lot of the cantinas, you'll see even markings of mafia and gangs. So we do realize that this is heavily involving a lot of gangs and syndicate and the mafia. So it can be very dangerous.
Wow. Wow. That is crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. In this one cantina, before you took the girl to the very back, and this is also to intimidate, I think, the John and also the girl.
Okay.
They would have guards standing at the door, the exit door, which is the entrance into the brothel area of it, and down the guards' arms they would have "In God We Trust."
Okay.
So to me, that's just showing a girl, they were dressed like police officers for one, and then they had "In God We Trust" down their arm. So
Wow.
we're showing girls there that you have no hope. The police are involved, and God is not going to help you.
Wow.
And that's how I took it.
Wow. That is baffling.
Yes.
That is baffling. Now, when you talk about, okay, we talked about a cantina and exactly what that is, which is basically a bar, and then you talked about the brothel. Explain the brothel. Now, the brothel, is that the actual area where this sexual indiscretion takes place?
Exactly. It is. And those are in our spas also.
Really?
Yes, really.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I was under the misconception that a lot of the human sex trafficking was primarily Asian and people of foreign descent. I didn't expect it to be a lot of American people.
Sure.
I always thought, from Filipino or Korean or Cambodia.
Thailand.
Thailand. And I know you're familiar with all those places. And there's a particular thing that takes place over there that we had discussed in our meeting about their procedure for getting their kids over here. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's not, a couple things, because when we're looking at the Asian population of Cambodia, Thailand, and also Philippines, a lot of these areas are very, very, very poor, and they have no means a lot of times of eating. So what they do is they use their girls as a financial backbone of the family. So when a family has a little girl, they realize that is a commodity for them, that they can make money from this little girl. So when we're talking about those parts of the world, they're selling children a little bit younger. We're talking 4 years old, that kids are being sold into sex slavery.
4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years old. And I think the heinous part of that just breaks my heart is they're babies. They're
Yeah.
literally babies. And to realize that there is a demand for a child, and the younger they are, the more money that they can make off of a child. And
The younger they are, the more money they can make.
yeah, and you know, it's the men that are victimizing these girls are, yes, from there, but they're also from the United States. You have the majority of these men that are coming to these countries from the United States, and the average age is around that 30 years old to 39 years old, that you have these men that are traveling, you know, to these countries to have sex with babies.
With men that are traveling to these countries to have sex with 4-year-old kids,
Girls and boys. Girls and boys.
and the parents are actually selling their 4-year-old
They're
kid.
selling-
So are they prostituting the kid, or are they actually selling it and getting rid of them altogether? How does
It's
that work?
it's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both,
Yeah,
okay.
you have families that are actually selling them their children, but the kids get to come back home basically. So they're selling them and making money off of them, and then you have some that are outright selling them to a brothel. And what they will do is they will pay the family like monthly, you know, for that child. So they don't come back and get these children. And then some families have no idea what they're doing because you have so many evil people out there that
Wow.
will go to a family to say, you know what, I have a job in the city for your child, and it's in a factory.
Okay.
You know, so they can make money because you're starving.
Mm-hmm.
And a parent can be so naive and they will actually sell them. And then you have families that are knowing what they're doing, so they're selling their children outright. And 9 times out of 10, the mother was also trafficked or, you know, sold into
Wow.
that type of slavery.
Wow.
With the 4-year-olds, that really broke my heart is that they would take the babies, and because it was something for a man to have a virgin, so they would have sex with these 4-year-old girls, and what the mama son would do after that is sew the girl back up, so that the next time that she was sold, she would scream and she would also shed blood.
As if to be a symbolic
virgin
of virginity
all
and,
over again.
and this type of thing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just hard to even imagine that another human being could be as heartless as that, to do that to a innocent baby, a child. Now, we also discussed the boy children
Yes.
that are born into the
Girly boys.
they call them, is it girly boys or,
Yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah.
Now, also let's
Lady
talk
boys.
Lady boys. Yeah. So when the boy child is born into the family, we know that the girls are like the top priority or top commodity or whatever. So in order for them to sell the boys, what was one of the things that we talked about that they did?
Well, in the Thailand community, the girls are the financial supporters of the family. The boys are sent to the Buddhists to become the spiritual leaders of a family. So when a family does not have a girl and has a boy, they start to groom this little boy as a girl. And they dress in girls' clothing, they grow their hair longer so they can sell them. So
Wow.
they are called lady boys.
Wow. And you know, the sad part is they never have an opportunity at life.
You know?
That's the sad and unfortunate part of this whole thing. And to think that adults, and I say this often, adults mess up the lives of children. Children don't mess up the lives of children, but adults mess up the lives of children. And when you see this type of thing taking place in the world and affecting, and not only that, but what happens when that child becomes an adult?
Well, a lot of times the community will frown upon that child. That child,
Wow.
even though they realize this child has been sold into prostitution, that have been beaten, tortured,
None of that-
and not able to escape, this is something that the community actually, they will frown upon that child. And they're no good to society.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Donna, this dialogue is amazingly intriguing and almost hard to believe and just hard to fathom. We're going to continue talking about that in just a moment when we come back with more of Let's Talk About It. You guys want to stick around?
CIA would say that the sale of women, we're not talking pornography, and we're not even talking about prostitution. We're talking about just the sale of women, constitutes the third largest industry in the world.
Dozens upon dozens of girls in a village of 3,000 people that are raped 5 to 10 times a day for money, for the pleasure of some guy, foreigner coming to our country.
All right, welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It, where today's topic is about human sex trafficking. Donna, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrell.
You know, I have to say, this is one of the heaviest shows that I've ever done. We've done some pretty deep topics here on Let's Talk About It, but today's topic has really blown my mind. Really blown my mind. I want to talk about some of the some key points as it relates to this particular topic that people can maybe look for, or things that might keep them and or their children from this type of thing.
Well, those are called the warning signs and like the red flags that I think any of us can probably identify. It's just having a watchful eye, you know, wherever you are when you're looking at people and children. And if you're going to be like me, I'm looking at every single body. I'm looking at everyone on the street to see if I'm seeing any kind of signs, you know, that's involved, you know, with trafficking. But some of the warning signs that I think are very important is when you see a child that is malnourished. If you come across a child that, if your child's friends come up missing often, if a child travels a lot, if a child that normally does not have name brand items, if they're coming home with name brand shoes, bags, purses, 2 cell phones are always an indicator, because you may provide a cell phone for your child, but also the trafficker's pimp has provided a cell phone to always get in touch with the child. Bruises are very common, you know, whether they are black, brown, blue, or even kind of yellowish because it's in the healing process. Burn marks are very common. And tattoos, because it's branding.
Tattoos?
Yeah, especially a lot of the pimps that are involved in this are in gangs. And so what they end up doing is branding their victims to let other pimps know that they belong to them. So branding is a huge part of it.
So when you say brand, like cattle, branding, like a rancher would brand a cattle, but basically that's what it is.
It's
with
a tattoo. Yeah.
That lets them know that I own this girl.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then some of the kids will also just maybe start using some of the common language, you know, that they use on the streets, and so maybe that's always an indicator, you know, as well.
So when you say common language, what might a common language be, or what type of verbiage would that be?
Gosh, some of it I may not be able to say, but you know, they refer to a flock, because that is the family that they belong to now. Okay. They refer to stables. We sometimes, you know, and kids got to be very, very careful, because there is something known as, if I can say this on your show, a bottom bitch. And a bottom bitch is someone that actually takes care of the stable of girls. You have the facilitators, you have the recruiters, you have things like that. You know, it's a lot that we can certainly share with your audience, and have a list out there for them to. Okay.
And we certainly want to disseminate that information for sure. So at the end of our segment, we're certainly going to have that type of information for our viewers to grab a hold of and educate them a little bit further. I want to ask you real quick, we only got a couple of minutes left. How do you actually decompress from all the information that you have to take in while being a part of the task force that you've started? How do you handle that?
It has been a journey. And I've had nights where I did nothing but cry in my husband's arms, you know, and the more stories that you read about and listen to, it does break your heart, you know, and sometimes I am affected, you know, in my sleep, that I cannot seem to turn it off. Yeah. But I do realize that I have a work to do, and I have to be very strong when I'm dealing with any women or victims, you know, in this trafficking. Yeah. So, you know, I put on a hard exterior, you know, so I can help people, you know, instead of breaking down. So I have to be strong, but I kind of pull from that pain in order for me to do something that's good.
That is fantastic. Now, when you mention helping people, I'd like for you to give some information to people that are out there that may be involved in situations like this, or maybe know of someone, if you can maybe give a number or information that might be helpful?
Yeah, we have so many wonderful organizations here in Houston for girls that are under 17 years old that are trying to find an out and a place to live. We have Freedom Place. That's freedomplace.org. We have redeemedministries.org that are nothing but geared towards helping those that are trapped in this heinous, crime, and also have restoration homes. There is for people that may suspect that someone's being trafficked. There's Traffic 911. That's very important to
Traffic 911.
Yeah, to contact. And then we also have a national hotline for human sex trafficking. That number is 1-888-373-7888.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful information. I know it's going to bless somebody out there in TV land. This has been a very interesting segment on Let's Talk About It. I hope you guys have been informed, educated, and inspired on today's show. You can certainly reach us at Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Love 146 works toward the abolition of child sex slavery and exploitation through prevention and aftercare. Love 146 protects children across Asia, the US, and Europe by developing and sustaining targeted prevention projects in high-risk communities. Love 146 defends the rights of the vulnerable through advocacy, prevention, and effective action. Love 146 restores hope to survivors through holistic aftercare and training caregivers. The Love 146 Round Home provides therapy, a sense of family, and a space to thrive. Love 146 empowers survivors through education and viable employment opportunities, equipping them to transition back into communities. Love protects. Love defends. Love restores. Love empowers. We are Love 146.